Hey there, comic book fans. I am back today with another review for you. And I just figured I'd take a look at an old Wonder Woman from 1982. Was this March 1982? So that puts it probably, in 81, November 81 I probably got this. And this was the only time I was ever buying Wonder Woman off the rack. I find Wonder Woman to be a weird sort of phenomenon in that she's always been extremely popular as sort of a cultural icon, but as a comic book, not so much. I mean, there, especially me growing up in the 70s and 80s, there was not very many good Wonder Woman comics out there. I mean, she didn't get the top talent of the day. I think the first time I can remember Wonder Woman getting the top talent, I didn't even buy it. I was long out of reading Marvel and DC stuff. But I think when George Perez came around, I don't remember when that was. Was that the late 80s or the early 90s sometime? That may have been the first time Wonder Woman had sort of A-list talent on her. But other than that, like this is actually drawn by Gene Colan, who I was just wondering. I was just trying to think what I'd consider Gene Colan, because he's the reason I started buying this book. This is I was a Marvel kid, and this was right about when I started buying DC comics, because some of the Marvel creators were over there. It was Perez and Wolfman's Teen Titans that made me go over there, and it was Gene Colan's Wonder Woman that made me want to try out Wonder Woman. But like I said, I'm not sure if I'd consider Gene Colan an A-list talent because his work is so quirky. I like him. I like his stuff. And like I said, he's the reason I bought this book. But a lot of people don't like him because he's got a lot of weird, awkward quirkiness to his drawings and things. Like, look at this cover. Who did this? Colan and Giordano. First of all, this cover I don't think is very good. This giant head in front of it does nothing for the cover and just obscures the two figures here. And the two figures are kind of strange, awkward Gene Colan figures. I mean, that is definitely not the greatest Wonder Woman head ever right there. He did other nice covers for this particular run. But this one doesn't do much for me. And this is the second issue to this story. I think Gene Colan took over at 288, and this is 289. For some reason, I just decided to read this one. I didn't want to read the whole run, which I haven't read since 1982, so it's been 35 years. I actually had these out because I was trying to sell them on eBay because I haven't read them in 35 years, but like I said, no one is really interested in Wonder Woman comics. Only 2 people even looked at the listing. So we start off with a story, once again, this splash page doesn't do a lot for me. The Invisible Jet isn't the greatest image of all time, and this kind of Wonder Woman, this foreshortened figure, doesn't do much for me, and the Kraken. So as a splash page, I gotta say this one doesn't make it for me. But then we get nice half splash here, nice figure there. And Gene Colan was forever, he was one of the original guys who liked diagonal panels, and he liked things breaking over the panels, but he did it well. I mean, not everybody does. Some people do it pointlessly. But he just like that little bit of, he likes that little bit of lasso coming over there. And this is just a nice little sort of action sequence of Wonder Woman pointlessly fighting a Kraken. I mean, really, it has nothing to do with the story. It's just opening nice. Once again, he does a nice job of her diving down. And Gene Colan also depends a lot on the inker. He's got Romeo Tanghal inking him here. And he kind of caught some of Wonder Woman's moodiness in his lines there in the leg, and some of Gene Colan's moodiness, but mostly he cleaned them up. So I don't, I prefer sort of moodier Gene Colan than cleaned up Gene Colan, but that's what, I'm guessing that's why they hired Romeo Tanghal to do it. Just for him, they wanted him, Wonder Woman cleaned up a little, not just the, and this is just the weirdest panel. Whoops, I'm knocking that down. They're riding giant kangaroos, and what is with that running pose on Wonder Woman? She's like shuffling along besides the shuffling. That's just bizarre. And her kangaroo is named Kanga or Jump. They actually mentioned it here. Where some Jumpa is the name of her kangaroo. It's like, once again, there's a nice shot of Wonder Woman there. There's a beautiful figure drawing there. So once again, it's just a kind of standard, solid Roy Thomas story. But Wonder Woman didn't even have solid for many, many years. She had crappy. Like all through the 70s, who collects 1970s Wonder Woman? Nobody, just about. Some people collect 60s Wonder Woman. Some people collect, the George Perez Wonder Woman. Lots of people collect Wonder Woman just for the covers, for the Adam Hughes and Brian Boland covers all through the 90s and 2000s. But it's like nobody collects 1970s Wonder Woman, or early 80s Wonder Woman for that matter. Once again, here's some nice Gene Colan. Gene Colan is very good at drawing sort of normal, average people. There's, what's her name, Etta Candy, and some other new mysterious character who I think is Silver Swan, what's her name, in disguise. So we get a beautiful shot of, nice establishing shot of the cars and the Capitol building, nice moody drawing here. This is what this is why, as much as I try to ponder if Gene Colan is an A-level guy or not, his Tomb of Dracula with Marv Wolfman is definitely A-level. Even if I don't consider him an A-level talent, he's a talent who did an A-level book. So that's kind of, I think I cannot consider you an A-level talent, and you can have made A-level work. So that's just one of those things. Because like I said, I don't think there's some guys who I think all their work is A-level. Like George Perez, I'd put him as an A-level talent. I think all his work is A-level, even if all his comics aren't A-level. So it's a different type of judgment. But here, and once again, here, look at that. Look at that lovely face right there. You give him something creepy and spooky to draw, and he's all over it. Once again, this is Romeo Tangal doesn't clean this up as much in the inks. He keeps it. If you've ever seen Gene Colan pencils, he doesn't pencil like something's supposed to be inked. He uses the side of his pencil and grays. He's not easy to ink because ink is black and white and he's throwing down grays. Here's some of those curved flash. Look at those crazy eyes. A great guy in a suit sitting there. Great crazy eyes. Great floating head. He's sticking for the flashbacks to mostly the grid here. Doing an excellent job. Gene Colan is a good storyteller. There's a nice page turn. He's sitting here going blah 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 blah. I've got Steve Trevor on this thing here, and I'm going to make him into a monster or something. The page turn burst. But once again, he doesn't do bursting through the door like anyone else. He's got her just kind of dancing through the door. Nice figure drawing, but odd. This guy upside down these guys look cool. Falling down, getting beaten up, but he does, like a lot of people don't like this strange awkwardness of Gene Colan. I kind of do, but I can understand them not liking it. Nice butt shot punch. And here's Captain Wonder, and like I said, the story is almost meaningless in that it's solid, but it's nothing notable. It's somebody kidnapped Steve Trevor and uses Steve Trevor to make this guy somehow. Like I said, nice little fight scene here. It's amazing to me how, even with Wonder Woman, this is why I think women heroes in comics sometimes are hard to do, because that's disturbing. Just seeing a picture of a guy punching a woman like that is disturbing. Even though it's Wonder Woman, even though we know she's going to be okay, even though we know she's going to she's strong enough to take it, even though we know it's her book and she's going to win in the end, that's just a disturbing image. It's somehow less disturbing if it's not a man beating on a woman. So I think that's one of the strange things about women getting into physical fights in comics that can be disturbing. The rest of it is just kind of a common fight. There's nothing as brutal as that right there. And then it ends with, who is this? Silver Swan? The Silver Swan. I think she was in the issue before this, to So we kind of expected that she showed up at the end of this issue. Then we've got a completely forgettable Huntress story in the back. Who is this? Paul Levitz and Joe Stewart. Once again, nothing wrong with the story. It's solid. But, you know, Huntress, I never cared much about the Huntress, and they didn't do much to make me care about the Huntress in these 8 pages. I'd say the winner here would have to be the main story over the backup story. Mostly because of the Gene Colan art. This might be the 2 best pages. Mostly because of the Gene Colan artwork. But like I said, there's nothing wrong with this comic. It's a solid comic book, but that's about the best you can say about it. But in the years leading up to this, you couldn't have even said that about Wonder Woman comics. So having 2 solid craftsmen like Roy Thomas and Gene Colan on the story was a step up for Wonder Woman. Even though I don't even think I lasted to the end of Gene Colan's run here. I think I bought to issue 300 it was, and then I bailed on the book. So it obviously wasn't that interesting. But, you know, just a sort of a little brief time period in history where they really did try to get some talent on Wonder Woman instead of giving it to the whoever was available. Oh, which, by the way, the reason there wasn't a lot of talent on Wonder Woman, I've read, is that it was not a good seller, but they had to publish it, because if they ceased publishing Wonder Woman, the rights would go back to the rights holder, who was that guy who created Marston, I can't even remember his name now off the top of my head. The rights would go back to him and his family, so that's why they had to publish Wonder Woman. So all through the 70s and late 60s, they published her just to keep the rights. So they weren't putting a lot of effort into it. They weren't putting the top talent on it. So, and you know, not that many people cared. So this is when they actually said, hey, why don't we try to put some talent on Wonder Woman and see how it works. I didn't work that well, but it was better than it used to be. So anyway, there's a little look at Wonder Woman number 289, and you guys have a good day.